The New York Yankees found out, then the Seattle Mariners found out, and now the LA Dodgers have found out. The Toronto Blue Jays are a hell of a baseball team as they take game one of the World Series. Kyle and Dan here with CJ Nitkowski. The Toronto Blue Jays put up 11 runs in game one. It's something we've seen in each series. It continues to defy logic, yet it continues to happen. CJ, your initial take on game one.
So we wondered about the Toronto offense now against maybe some of the toughest pitching that they were going to see, and would they strike out 4 times tonight? The idea of contact in this day and age, it seems like it's such a foregone conclusion that you don't have to be a good contact team. You can strike out a bunch as long as you hit a home run every once in a while. That is the new kind of brand of baseball. It is so nice to see this. It's fun to watch. It was obviously a great first game. They got to Blake Snell the way that he did. It looked like he actually was affected in a negative way of the 10 days off that he had since his last start when he threw those 8 innings. And as good as he was, that was good to see, certainly for the Jays. And then even though Trey Yesavage didn't go that deep, you could tell he was a little bit nervous. You could see some of that energy in his body in that first inning. He did a good enough job to keep them in it. And then the way they set this lineup here tonight worked out really well. John Schneider did a good job. They made some really tough decisions on who was going to be in there, and it paid off in a big way.
Yeah, CJ, it's almost like a new style of baseball the Jays are playing on offense right now. It's not exactly small ball, but it's contact combined with these outbursts of power. They saw 3 home runs tonight, but I think it was 8 or 9 different Blue Jays, maybe 10 had hits tonight. Other guys got on base. They're not bunting the ball, they're not stealing bases, but they don't need to because the bats with the contact and the chasing of pitchers keep moving guys along.
Even some of that soft contact, right, that you can take advantage once in a while. Bo Bichette, we hadn't seen him, since September 6th in the lineup, and he swings at a 3-0 pitch, and it ended up being a hit. Was it a great hit? It wasn't. It was a slow ground ball to the right side. Is that what you want to do in a 3-0 count? Not exactly, but you want him swinging. And the fact of the matter is he hadn't played in a long time, and I was worried about his timing, and even that as an example of a guy who will expand more than most in that Jays lineup, did a really nice job. So, yeah, up and down the lineup, putting pressure on the defense, putting the ball in play for Blake Snell, who knows how to rack up strikeouts as good as anybody in the game. He's somewhat befuddled. They're laying off some of those high fastballs, whether they were missing. He couldn't get the chase that he wanted either on some of the borderline pitches. That sets up his curveball and his slider really well. That put him in disadvantageous counts and put the Jays in a much better position to hit. I think he was probably a little bit thrown off by that because he just is so used to getting Chase. He's a guy that has been relying on Chase throughout his career. They were disciplined, and when they had their opportunities inside the strike zone, they took advantage of it.
For you, Savage, the Dodgers were on the verge of breaking the game open because the newness, the shiny new toy, it's worn off on you, Savage, even though he's only been in the majors for a month. But the tape is out there now. So he has to adjust on the fly. And I don't think he had the command of everything. They kept mentioning on the Fox broadcast that he was just not confident in his fastball.
Yeah, and a split. He did not throw nearly as many splits as we were kind of anticipating, and that could have been. We heard John Schneider talking about it during the game. Was that maybe opponent dependent? Right, looking at scouting reports, I don't think, and that might have been him trying to cover for him a little bit, which all good managers will do. There's not too many teams in baseball that you don't want to throw a good split finger to. It's the pitch that gives you the lowest batting average in the game. It's the pitch that gets you the most swing and miss, the most strikeouts in baseball. So I don't know if there's a team you say I don't want to throw my split too much to them. I think he was doing a nice job of covering for his young pitcher. The adjustment that he did make though was the use of the slider. And if you sit there and watch on TV, and John Smoltz did a nice job of breaking this down, if that slider splitter, those words aren't up there on the screen when you're watching it, you may not tell the difference because that slider goes straight down, right? Your average slider is going to have some horizontal break to it. It's going to be a lot easier to pick up. But if you were watching him without velocities, without the pitch recognition that's telling you what pitch is being thrown, you'd actually have a hard time picking up the difference between those two pitches. But he realized the slider was there. You're right about some of that fastball command. Again, we saw it right away. I think it was the second hitter that he faced where he kind of stumbled on the mound a little bit. To me, that told me that he was feeling it in his legs, almost like a debut, right? It's loud in there. There's a ton of energy. There wasn't anything wrong with the mound, right? They do a great job of getting the mound ready. It was probably just how he was landing and how he was feeling in the biggest moment of his life. I mean, and who knows if he'll ever have a bigger one. As good as he is, he's getting game one in a World Series. second youngest pitcher ever to do it since Ralph Branca did it for the Brooklyn Dodgers. I mean, all of that is a ton to put on a young man. And so I do think we probably saw some nervousness, but he did a good job of not allowing any big inning to get away from him. And as we talked about, the adjustments on that slider because the split was not there, I thought was really good from him tonight.
CJ, you've seen way more baseball than me. You played in the majors. There were some swing and misses by the Dodgers where I've never seen hitters miss by almost 12 inches.
Yeah, so and I think that's more of a tip of the cap to what we saw from some of the Jays pitching, and at times for Yesavage. The ball that Max Muncy struck out on, that split day in the inning, it wasn't his best split, and it was pretty far off the plate. And for whatever reason, if you kind of look at the splits for Yesavage so far this year, he has dominated lefties. If you look at the 3 starts of the regular season, and now it's 4 here in the postseason, the numbers against lefties are not good. For those hitters. And he's been okay against righties, but he's been much better against the lefties. And the split is the reason. So if you can get a guy like Max Muncy to take that ugly of a swing on a split finger, and he's a good hitter. I know there's a lot bigger hitters and bigger names in that lineup. To me, that kind of stuck out as one of those moments that you're talking about where, for whatever reason, the Dodgers, and maybe it was the layoff, I think it's probably they're not going to make that excuse, but I think it's a fair assessment. It's tough to do when you're not seeing live pitching. You can get on that machine, that trajectory machine that everybody talks about. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically it's a machine where they can put on a screen and simulate every big league pitcher. You can do that stuff all day long and get a guy that looks like Trey Yesavage throwing from the same angle. It's not the same as getting in the box in a crowd and trying to get your timing right. And I think that was probably some of what you saw as well here.
Sticking with Trey Yesavage for another moment here, we've seen these flashes of brilliance from him in the playoffs, and now we've seen him a couple of times pitch himself both in and out of trouble. Both of those can have positive effects on a pitcher's confidence. Where does he go in his next start? Like, it seems to me like dealing with this resilience is as good as it is shutting a team down completely.
I think listening to the quotes from him that he is in a really good place mentally. I mean, and you want guys to be confident, and I do think there's a line in there sometimes where there can be some arrogance and ignorance, but I'd still rather you be on that side than on the other side of maybe being a little bit too complacent. I don't worry about him as much because I do believe in the things that he said, the way that he carries himself, and believing that he's built for the moment. What would be interesting, assuming now that the Jays don't sweep this series, is that he'd be lined up for a Game 5. So that'll be a road game in Los Angeles. Who knows where the series will be at that point? And so that's the moment that you're now talking about. That's going to be the one because we've seen a little bit of the up. We've seen a little bit of the down. He's probably not happy with himself because you always want to go deeper in a game, but he pitched well enough. His team won. I think he's probably hearing a lot of that from Pete Walker, his pitching coach, and other coaches and teammates as well. Like, hey, good job today. Way to keep us in it, even though he expects more of himself. So hopefully he walks out with somewhat of a positive feel about how things went and probably even more determined now to do better, assuming he does get that Game 5. If he doesn't, it's a good thing. That means the Jays swept the series. But the reality is we probably will get to a Game 5. So he's going to have that start. As much as it was fun today to do it in front of those Jays fans, it'll be 55,000 now in Los Angeles, assuming they all show up on time when the game starts, as they're kind of known for not doing. They get there in the playoffs. But that'll be the cool moment to watch for him because that'll now be the next biggest thing that he has ever done in his career.
Okay, let's talk about the 6th inning. It's where the game changed. Yes, Dalton Varsho hit a 2-run homer after he had a key moment in his first at-bat with the bases loaded, could not do anything with it. So Varsho ties the game up. We get to the 6th after some lull innings. And describe that inning as a pitcher, as a player, CJ, because you must get to a point, whether you're pitching, you're behind the plate where you're like, this is getting annoying. Can we get one guy out? They were just going station to station, getting little hits, and then the grand slam by Addison Barger.
So we refer to it a lot of times as the runaway train, right? Things start happening. The train has left the station. You got to figure out a way to slow it down, and nobody could do it. And it goes back to what we mentioned with this team and their ability to put the ball in play. The only strikeouts that happened tonight for the Jays were by Blake Snell. Not a single reliever was able to record a strikeout tonight. So you get Snell starting this inning. There's a walk in there. There's kind of a soft single from Alejandro Kirk, again, just putting the ball in play. And then you get that hit by pitch, and it was going to be ball 4 anyway. Blake Snell had lost it at that point. He obviously was not comfortable. And I think, again, showing up that he had not pitched in 10 days, he never quite could get in the groove. It looked like he was going to be in a groove there for a while, and then he unraveled in that 6th inning. So the command got away from him. The Jays did a good job of putting some pressure on him. And again, a lot of it wasn't necessarily high exit velocity hits. And then Emmett Sheehan comes in, a guy who had been a starter throughout his career, and you could see it from him. And he's already pitched now in the postseason. But this bullpen has been in a little bit of trouble, and there's a lot on some guys that are not necessarily built for these kind of moments that don't have this level of experience. The guys that do have it are not there. The unfortunate situation with Alex Vesia with his family, and you certainly hope everything's going to be okay there with him. But they don't have Tanner Scott right now, the guy they spent all the money on to bring him into their bullpen. Kirby Yates was the second guy they brought in and spent a ton of money. So they had to go to less experienced guys, and the Jays took full advantage of it. And exactly what you're talking about is that it just felt like it was never ever going to end. The Jays are okay with that. Keep going as long as you possibly can. But those runaway innings are something that you learn as an experienced reliever. And Emmett Sheehan, while he's a good pitcher, is not necessarily an experienced reliever. He is a starter. He's probably better suited for that role. So he struggled to be able to get that done. And there's kind of a psychology to it of being able to slow yourself down a little bit. You got bases loaded and nobody out. You feel like you can't get anybody out. You're not going to get 3 outs at one pitch, right? There's a psychology to getting comfortable and figuring out, all right, I got to get one. How can I get one and start to get some momentum back in my favor? And it just took them a long time to be able to figure that out.
Sticking with the bullpen briefly, we know that the Dodgers have their issues. You just discussed them. But down the stretch and at moments in these playoffs, the Blue Jays have also had their issues, but those now seem to be behind them. They're being well managed by Schneider, and everyone's coming in and doing their job, from Hoffman regaining his confidence to Bassett going out into the pen and doing the work as well.
Yeah, and it's nice that you have the starters that are comfortable doing it. Right? I mentioned Emmett Sheehan. He's not an experienced guy. He struggles here a little bit. You get Chris Bassett, who you can tell just by the body language, the way he carries himself. Whatever you want me to do, I'm here to do. And he almost seems like he's relishing in the moment of the idea that, hey, we're going to actually use you in the pen. And he's more than happy to go out there and do the best he possibly can to help this team, because they all have one goal in mind, and that's to win a World Series, right? So there's no egos there. So Bassett steps in and does a nice job in an area in which you need it. I know we didn't see Jeff Hoffman tonight, but his postseason has been spectacular. You guys well know he had a home run issue during the season, second most home runs allowed by any reliever in the game. And I'm not a jinx guy, but I'll go ahead and knock on the wood anyway. He has not allowed a home run yet here in the postseason. So I think that's been some really good news. We know he can be an emotional guy, and sometimes maybe things can get away from him, but they have figured out ways to get this done. I think for Brendan Little, he's still got to show it a little bit. He had a great year, but he's pitched a lot. And these last couple of postseason outings for him have just kind of been okay, but they're sitting here and they're mixing and matching and they're finding other guys to do it. You had that bigger lead, so it took some of the pressure off of these guys pitching in their first World Series, but they got good results. I mean, obviously there's still a long way to go, but you probably feel a little bit better about your bullpen today as a Jays fan.
How are the Dodgers? They must be leaving the ballpark like they're leaving a haunted house. Like what just happened? The Jays are used to it. They put up double digits a lot of times in the postseason and in the regular season, while the Dodgers run to get to this point. This is something they couldn't even have a nightmare about.
They definitely did not see this coming. I mean, there were some concerns, I'm sure, for them with Yesavage and knowing the upside and facing him. But the way that kind of first inning went, and he couldn't quite get locked in, the split wasn't there. There was probably some confidence. Now, they didn't come through when they needed to, and you mentioned it, and there were some ugly swings that started to happen. Then you had the really bad inning. That's on the pitching, and it's getting away from you. And now you're looking back and saying, man, we just got blown out in game one of a World Series in which we are heavily favored to win. But you have this group of veterans, right? It's not a really young team. They're confident for them. They're in a good spot in the sense that they always have a good starter, which is not the case for most teams when you get this deep into the postseason. Even the Dodgers last year, if you remember the Dodgers last year, when they had that game 5 against the San Diego Padres, it was a bullpen game. They were thin on starting pitching. The reason that the Dodgers are so heavily favored is because all of a sudden now their starting rotation is really healthy to the point that Clayton Kershaw is in the bullpen, Emmett Sheehan's in the bullpen. They haven't had this in a while. So there's a confidence there, I think, for them still, even though they got crushed here tonight, let up a bunch of runs, lost by 7. That's a little bit of a shock to the system, but they understand how it works, right? This has been a postseason team, a World Series winner from a year ago. A lot of these guys have been through this. Not a lot of panic necessarily after losing a game 1, but I think to your point, there is something about a statement win. Like you had no chance to win this game after we got halfway through it. That does feel a little bit different. At the same time, they know they got Yamamoto going tomorrow. Not that Gausman is going to be easy for them, but I do think this is more of a veteran team that probably shakes it off pretty quickly and will be ready to go tomorrow.
CJ, you just mentioned how Bassett's body language and everything about his attitude, it gives off the impression I am here to do what's ever needed. In the Sportsnet broadcast tonight up here in Canada, they mentioned the lineup. The lineup had changed over to obviously be a little bit different. A few less left-handed hitters starting the game, even though they had 2 lefty on lefty home runs. But they mentioned that the players are all ready and know the roles and the moments in which they'll come in off the bench to pinch hit, and we saw the results of that tonight. How
Yep.
big is that for a team, for everyone immediately adjusting to do whatever they need to do to get this job done?
It is big, right? Because there have been times over the years in our game where some people have not necessarily been that comfortable not being a starter when they should be. Big names that we have seen over the years go back a couple of decades with some guys remember with the New York Mets. It kind of became an issue. The Boston Red Sox have run into that at times with some veterans that maybe get a little frustrated that they're not
Go back to
treated
Jazz
like stars.
Chisholm in the Yankee
Yeah.
series against the Jays.
Yeah. Yeah, better recent history for the younger folks. Good job, Dan. I appreciate you picking me up. But that's exactly it, right? And there's no place for that in the game. I mean, we get it who you are, but once the postseason starts, there's all kinds of pressure on everybody to win. They are going to do what they think is best. I talked about it on my radio show today, wondering where the lineup was going to go and what that meant for Addison, Barger, and obviously not comfortable putting George Springer in the field, let him continue to DH. And I think everyone was a little bit like, okay, can Bo Bichette play second base? And then he made that great play up the middle, right? You're wondering if they're going to be a little bit weaker defensively because of it, right? And trying to figure out, do we want to be a little bit weaker because maybe George Springer can't cover as much ground, or should we just take a guy and put him in a position in which he's never played in the big leagues before? And even though it's over, everything is different from shortstop to second. Everything is
But
opposite. All
Bo
the throws,
cannot
the
run.
turn,
Did you see him run down
Yeah.
the first baseline?
He didn't look. Yeah, after he dove for that ball and he made the great play, he kind of came up limping a little bit. So he didn't look great. Of course, eventually he comes out for the pinch runner and Isaiah kind of Falefa, and now your defense instantly gets better, right? IKF is a really good defender no matter where you put him. But the reaction I thought that we saw on television, and I obviously get the Fox feed being here in the States, but I'm sure you guys saw it as well, from Davis Schneider after the homer. Makes it clear as day, right? There's nobody in this going, David Schneider's not sitting there watching it going, oh, I hope he makes it out here because I should have been the one hitting. Nobody's thinking that, right? It's not high school. This is about trying to win and do what's best for the team. And so the reaction from the teammates, I think, is certainly everything that you wanted to see. So they're in a good place. I think it goes to the kind of people that you bring into your clubhouse. It goes to the leadership in a guy like John Schneider and making sure everyone's on the same page, the communication that goes on in that situation, and just hoping that you don't have any sour apples that are not happy that they're not in the lineup and feeling like they otherwise should be.
CJ, you're the best. We'll talk to you after game 2.
All right, let's go. I'm in it for Don Mattingly, by the way. That's what I'm
Johnny
most excited.
Baseball.
Who is it?
I was a Mattingly fan as a kid. I obviously clearly not a Yankee fan anymore, but I was as a kid. Sat in the upper deck, had a sign one day for him. Got to have him as a coach when I played for the Yankees. I am pulling so hard for Don Mattingly to get a World Series ring in the worst way.
I still couldn't believe that this was his first World Series.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
It's amazing. All right, boys. Thanks for
Thanks
having
more,
me.
buddy.
Thanks, CJ. See you tomorrow.
CJ Nitkowski, just a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
That man. But he hit the nail on the head how the rest of the world is now seeing that this entire team is in it as a group. Miles Straw pulled out of the game. David Schneider pulled out of the game. They don't care. We see guys get pulled out of the game for defensive replacements every single game that the Jays play.
Yep.
It's just what they do. And the offensive outburst is just what they do. And now all of baseball is saying collectively, so this is a team that's for real. It wasn't a fluke against the Yankees, wasn't a fluke against the Mariners.
Dan, I think a part of what we're seeing as well with the lack of selfishness on the players is the fact that basically every single one of these guys has managed to contribute on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball right down the stretch, all through the playoffs. They haven't been driven by a few superstars. They are 1-9 and really 1-12 with guys that are capable of coming in off the bench and doing the job, be it offensively, be it defensively. They've proven it time and time again. They all know how to work the count. They all know how to chase starting pitchers. They all foul off balls. We run up pitch counts like crazy on this field, and it's paying off night after night as a complete effort, top to bottom.
And hats off to the crowd at Rogers Center. They didn't sit down. They were on their feet. That was the most engaged I've ever seen a Blue Jays crowd, right from the opening anthems and Cito Gaston throwing out the first pitch, and then Joe Carter This is what we hear. We'll be throwing out the pitch for game 2.
That is big time. Dan, I'm glad you actually mentioned those anthems. I meant to write down the group who did it. They did an excellent job with both the Canadian and American anthems tonight. Those were great performances. I also loved the Toronto crowd giving warm receptions to both Freddie Freeman and Teoscar Hernandez. It shows that the class exists, even though there's the rivalry right now in the World Series. It was electric. It's very rare to see a crowd manage to drown out a broadcast, but it happened several times tonight. It was fun to watch.
Still confused as to what Pharrell was doing. He was just like, I'm like, oh, he's gonna sing the okay. No, there's a choir
Nope.
singing. So what's his part? Did he choreograph it?
Wardrobe, maybe. It's hard to
I don't
say,
know.
really.
It was confusing. Then they showed him in the box.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it doesn't always need to make sense. What does make sense is the Jays. I'm sure in the back of their minds, they said to themselves, let's win one. Let's win
Yeah.
at least one at home. And that's what they've done. Not that they aren't going to try win 2, but now the pressure has eased. You thought the Jays were having fun in game 1. They will be a looser bunch in game 2. And Bo Bichette has major
Yeah.
league pitching under his belt. And it was nothing to be concerned about as he played a key part defensively and offensively.
He definitely did. He saw a lot of pitches. His eye at the plate was solid. There was that little excuse me cue shot single in the first, but I kind of felt like that's the right way to do it. Like just get the jitters out, just roll one through. It's fine. You got contact on the baseball. It's all we really needed from him. Truthfully, it was idyllic. But
Mhm.
and then tomorrow night, the crazy thing is the Jays are putting out their ace in game 2. And that's quite the statement to make, too, because Gossman will be ready for that moment. He's lived for this. They all want this. And, the kid goes out in game 1 and, it didn't have his best stuff, but again, pitched himself in and out of trouble. Very admirable.
I
Yeah.
still want to know what type of gum Gosman chews because he puts in a fresh stick or a fresh wad of gum before each inning and then tosses it out after the inning. So I need to know
I hope he's sponsored.
what, yeah, he should be sponsored. I want to know what type of gum he chews. Maybe we'll find that out as we will see you after game 2. Jays win game 1, 11-4. It was another memorable night for the Jays. Every single game they play is a memorable one, and we'll continue here tomorrow.